So welcome back. In this session, we're going to explain what a carbon footprint is, why you need one, and how we calculate it. So a carbon footprint is an estimate of the greenhouse gas emissions that are caused by your organisation in your day-to-day business. So those emissions will be made up of the fuels that you use, so whether that's electricity, gas, oil for heat and power. It'll be made up of travel, and the impact of everything else that you buy, potentially even the use of the goods and services that you sell. So why do you need a carbon footprint? What's the business case that we could put to calculating carbon footprint? Well, as the old adage goes, you can't manage what you don't measure, and that couldn't be more true than in this case. We want you to reduce your impacts, and if you don't know what those impacts are, or you don't want to know what the biggest impacts are, there's not much you can do about it. You can't confidently take action and know that you're going to make a difference. Ultimately, the power of a carbon footprint is what you do with it. Without acting on the information that it gives you, it's simply a bunch of numbers, and that's something we don't want you to do. So once you've got your carbon footprint, you can then easily see where your biggest, or what we call most material impacts are. So this is really helpful because it then allows you to prioritize your action, your time, your investment. It allows you to set targets that are very relevant to the business and will be impactful, and will enable you to just drive forward with a lot more confidence. So it'll also enable you to confidently communicate your impacts, whether that's to your customers, your clients, suppliers, investors, and be able to tell them what it is you're going to do and when you're going to do it, whether that's soon or it might be much further out in the future. We also know that customers are increasingly want to know much more detail around the environmental impact of your products and services, but they also want to trust that you're doing the right thing. So being able to report your impacts in a really transparent way, declare it in annual reports, that sort of thing becomes really powerful and can be quite an important differentiator with your customers. And in some cases, you may be legally required to measure and report your carbon footprint. So that mostly applies to bigger companies, bigger businesses. But what we're starting to see is that those requirements are being sort of flowed down to smaller companies by those larger organizations. So it's important you know what you need so you can answer your customers' needs. And also, you can also help with company resilience. So having a clear understanding of your environmental impacts enables you to consider related opportunities and risks, whether that's changing customer preferences, whether it's potential supply chain disruption. And you might want to make changes into your business now or in the coming years. Now you're aware that those things could affect you. So how do you do it? Well, a carbon footprint is basically a relatively simple collection of numbers with some serious research behind them to make them as accurate as possible. So we take data, such as the kilowatt hours of electricity, and we multiply it by what are called emission factors, which are often provided by governments. And that gives us our greenhouse gas emission for, in this case, electricity. So we build that up, and then we've covered everything we need to, and we have our total carbon footprint. So getting the right data is really, really important. We'll go into much more of that in other sessions, so you don't need to worry about too much of that today. And remember, it's completely fine to start with a really simple approach to your first carbon footprint calculation. Some companies start with just doing direct things like gas and maybe some electricity, maybe some business travel, the relatively easy things to get data, maybe some simple assumptions. That gives them a sense of what their impacts are. And then in the future, they can go and measure more things, or they can go into more detail. So you get a more and more accurate footprint year on year.